no obstruction. He's a leaker, but we want to get back to running our great country.
Former FBI Director Jim Comey is the leaker. President Trump says he has no problem telling his side under oath. Counsel to the president, Kellyanne Conway, and one of President Trump's attorneys, Jay Sekulow, join me live. Plus, reaction from Donald Trump Jr., and he's not holding back.
The head of the FBI is saying, well, if I was a stronger individual, I may.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
You're the head of the FBI.
And
Comey, WikiLeaks, voter suppression, fake news.
I'll talk about the latest episode of The Blame Game starring, yes, you won't want to miss a minute of this one. Justice starts now. Breaking tonight, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions to appear on Capitol Hill this Tuesday. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Attorney General Jeff Sessions agrees to go before the Senate Intelligence Committee just 1 week after the blockbuster testimony of former FBI Director James Comey. Full analysis on that coming up. But first, to my opening statement. With the country on the verge of a constitutional crisis and a level of hysteria not witnessed since Watergate, the greatest political hoax since Eve convinced Adam to eat that apple is being spun by Jim Comey in a conspiracy worthy of a Greek tragedy. And like all Greek tragedies, there's no good ending. He arrives all indignant before a Senate Intelligence Committee, calling the President of the United States a liar, saying he's the victim. He's been defamed. The President said the FBI was poorly run. Imagine. Were your feelings hurt, Jim? As if we didn't already know the FBI was in disarray after your repeated debacles with Hillary Clinton in the run-up to the presidential election. Poor Jim. You sound like a 2-year-old. Grow up. On second thought, don't. You're tall enough. But what do we know? Jim Comey doesn't much like Donald Trump, actually admitting he felt slightly nauseous that he might be responsible for Trump's win. He does something he's never done with other presidents, including that font of veracity, Barack Obama. He decides Donald Trump might lie to him, so he calculates to document every alleged word of their encounter, take it with him, and then leak it to the press. The only problem, the record is a federal record, and removing it, a clear violation of the Federal Records Act. Some foresight, though, huh? Thinking the president will lie to him. Comey's crystal ball at work. So he gives it to a friend to leak to the New York Times in order to get a special counsel to investigate the president. Curious. While he was head of the FBI, Trump was not under investigation. But once he's fired, humiliated, and an ex-employee, Comey decides Trump needs to be investigated. Jim, you had the power as the nation's chief law enforcement officer to investigate him, and you didn't. And now, a disgruntled ex-employee, you leak presidential conversations. Why? Your excuse? Once Donald Trump tweeted, "You better hope there are no tapes of your conversations," you say you had no choice but to defend yourself. Defend yourself? Your crystal ball must have been on overdrive, because what you defensively leaked in response to Trump tweet was published in the New York Times before Trump even tweeted. You were under oath, Jim. Are you sure you told the truth? So why not leak to the New York Times yourself?
I worried it would be like feeding seagulls at the beach if it was I who gave it to the media, so I asked my friend, make sure this gets out.
Really? Weren't you worried, though, that some reporter might out you? And, Jim, I'm having a real hard time believing this was your virgin attempt at leaking. Who even thinks like that, especially someone who is supposed to be the paradigm of virtue and ethics that you hold yourself out to be? And your hogwash about that shining city on a hill. You're the director of the FBI, acting like J. Edgar Hoover, surreptitiously leaking negative information about the president. Doesn't that send a message to the FBI that, hey, it's okay now to leak? You allow a New York Times article saying members of Trump's campaign had repeated contact with senior Russian intelligence officials to proliferate in spite of the fact you knew it wasn't true. You could have put truth to that lie, Jim, but you refused, allowing the country to suffer a trauma hyped to Watergate proportions. And if you didn't want to criticize the New York Times, why not at least surreptitiously leak to the Times that this was false? Or was your agenda to proliferate anti-Trump hate? And, Mr. America, one thing never leaked, that Donald Trump was not under investigation. Why refuse to say the president is not under investigation? You say because maybe one day he will be? That's your response? Maybe one day Martians will take a seat on the United States Supreme Court. Could it be, Jim, that being a team player is not in your DNA, that only center stage will do for you? And you're pretty damn wily when asked if an FBI agent has a duty to report a crime?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's a legal duty to report it. They certainly have a cultural, ethical duty to report it.
Are you kidding? Are you the same guy who lectured the country on a federal statute regarding Hillary Clinton? And now you're not sure about an issue central to your testimony? Like when you and your pal, now special counsel Mueller, had a showdown described as, quote, the single most extraordinary moment of the tumultuous Bush years? And obstruction of justice by the president? You and I both know, Jim, that if you believe that and don't report it, you're guilty of a felony.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing.
Not for you to say. Are you schizo? Are you the same guy who held a press conference to do what has never been done in the history of this country and announced to the world that no reasonable prosecutor would indict Hillary? By the way, Mr. America, how is it that you always seem to find yourself in the middle of a national crisis? Like that time you called in the FBI to rush you to John Ashcroft's hospital room to stop President Bush and save the nation. Jim, do you have illusions of grandeur? You spend a lot of time talking about your emotions.
It makes me mildly nauseous, so that gave me a queasy feeling. That's why I was so uneasy. I was so stunned. They were as shocked and troubled by it as I was. I was honestly concerned that he might lie. They confused me. It caused a whole lot of personal pain for me.
Was the job too much for you, Jim? Or was it straight politics? Why not just say, you know, Mr. President, I know you don't know the ways of Washington, but are you directing me to end an investigation? That way, no surreptitious leaking. The country wouldn't have to go through the trauma that's so much a part of your own personal drama. You might even have said, this is wrong, I can't do this. Like that time when Loretta Lynch asked you to lie to the country and not say Hillary was under investigation and instead use a parallel language the Clintons did. You did so, and you were dishonest with the American people. And even though you knew damn well Loretta Lynch was violating Justice Department ethics by even meeting the husband of a target of a long-standing active criminal investigation, you went along with her request to say that there was a Hillary Clinton matter and not an investigation. You knew it was wrong, but, quote, it wasn't a hill worth dying on. Man, are you dramatic. How many times were you pressured to do things during the Obama administration that weren't right? Why not report this? Why not surreptitiously leak? Why not ask for a special counselor for her? Truth? Jim, you're a political operative. You always have been. One who's addicted to drama, addicted to center stage. But like the main character in all Greek tragedies, your downfall is a consequence of a tragic flaw, a major weakness, your hubris. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter. That's my open. Hashtag Jeanine. Joining me now is counselor. Let me tell you something. You know, the sad part of all this is once we find out what has happened, we realize that all the good stuff that you have been trying to talk about, the administration has been trying to talk about, has been basically covered by this theory, this conspiracy, the president under investigation. What is your reaction to this?
There really is a tale of two White Houses, and I'm here to talk about the many measures the president is taking, Jeanine, including just this very week, that has impact on people's lives, and that's why he's there. That's why the vice president's why we're all there. And this was Infrastructure Week. It was very successful. The president spent 4 of the 5 days working with governors, mayors, other municipal leaders, tribal leaders. He went to the Department of Transportation and made a huge announcement. And at the beginning of the week, he announced something I think everybody should be very happy about. A way to modernize and bring into the 21st century our air system, air traffic control system.
So pathetic.
You know, it was built to accommodate 100,000 passengers annually. We now have about 1 billion passengers annually.
Right?
So this will make it easier, safer, and more able just to compete with the demands. Let's see if the Democrats, who have promised to resist and obstruct and impede every effort by this president, let's see if they get on board with something as simple and nonpartisan as improving air traffic control. So your weights are less on the tarmac, the hassle is less, and frankly, safety is the number one concern. Also, just this week, veterans took a giant step forward. Literally, the government has struggled for decades to do something as simple as having seamless record keeping between the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. And this week, President Trump and Secretary David Shulkin at the VA came together and announced that now veterans will be treated as one patient through the system. It's a great step forward for them getting that seamless care. We've heard all these tragic stories about
horrible stories
veterans
over the
waiting for
years.
care, some dying waiting for care. Also, another week, another major insurer pulling out of the Obamacare exchanges, as Vice President Pence said very sternly just today.
To testify under oath. And Jim Comey, has made all of these allegations about the president and the suggestion that, the president has done something wrong. Do you think that this puts an end to it, or do you think Jim Comey, especially with his good friend Bob Mueller, are not done yet?
I simply can't comment on Jeanine, and I would refer you to the president's own comments. I would refer you to the comments of his personal lawyer, Mr. Mark Hasowitz, who delivered those comments publicly the other day, and certainly people like you are out there expressing their opinions as well. But if you work in the White House, you really have no comment. The other thing I just wanted to preview for this coming week, because it's really exciting, is Workforce Development Week. And President Trump, along with his daughter Ivanka Trump, is also senior advisor to the president, will be going to Wisconsin to meet with Governor Walker and Secretary of Labor Acosta. They'll be going there to talk at a technical college, really see what's going on there and get some best practices, as Ivanka has been doing with these roundtables and these listening sessions. This involvement in workforce development means that if people want a vocational educational technical educational skills certificate, they should have access to that. Not everybody is college material, and not everybody has to graduate from a 4-year college with a mountain of debt and very few employment
prospects. And so this is something that's different from previous years.
Well, it is, and I've seen governors like Scott Walker, like Mike Pence when he was governor. I worked with him on this very initiative, where people are saying, look, if you are in a skills certificate program, you can graduate and be employable. Welders, carpenters, plumbers, hairdressers.
All right,
we need to value that. We need to value that as a country. And Ivanka Trump will be out there doing that.
I think General Jeff Sessions says, I'm willing to testify. The president said, I'm willing to testify. Do you think that there is a way now to put an end to this, or do you think the Democrats are just going to keep going after the president until they're done?
I long ago stopped predicting what the Democrats will do. I do, to your larger point, though, about them outwardly saying resist, obstruct. Neil Gorsuch, whose credentials are beyond, beyond reproach, getting just a handful of Senate votes. I think none of them coming together on health care. We don't see any of them coming together on taxes or infrastructure. And I would tell you, the president always welcomes Democratic support, but you see some of them calling for, extreme measures already. And I just feel people need to, I know that it was Donald Trump as a candidate who was asked that October 19th debate in Las Vegas, and asked every single day after that, 15 times we all were asked, will he accept the election results? The question is, when will they?
Won't. But does it ever get, when you've got so many good things things to talk about, so many things that you're doing. When everyone is working so hard, do you ever feel like, why am I doing this?
No,
I mean,
I don't feel that way at all.
Never.
I'm there because I'm there. There's millions of Americans out there who support him and want his
I got one
success.
more thing. You are more than a little molecule in the administration. Let me say that. Give yourself more question. And finally, are there tapes?
The president has said he'll let us know, and he has said publicly he'll let us know. Everybody has to wait and see, and I convert that personally into no comment because
All right,
I have no
I got
comment.
it. Kellyanne Conway, thanks so much for joining. It's good to see you. And up next, President Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow, is standing by live with the reaction to all the Comey news. Plus, my one-on-one interview with Donald Trump is still ahead, Donald Trump Jr. And later, Hillary's running out of people to blame, but that's not stopping her from coming up with more exclusives. Tonight's Street Justice, you don't want to miss it.
See what you're really made of. After 5 hours of spinning and one unfortunate ride on the Gravitron, your grandkids spot a 6-foot banana that you need to win.
30-day money-back guarantee and no contracts. Call 844-565-1999.
That's my voiceover guy. I don't know if he's handsome.
Developing tonight, former FBI Director Jim Comey's stunning testimony continues to dominate the headlines. Joining me now with more is Chief Counsel at the American Center for Law and Justice, and now part of the President's legal team, Jay Sekulow. Jay, thanks so much. I want to talk about James Comey's legal exposure. I want to talk about what I, as a former prosecutor, see as real legal problems for Jim Comey, and maybe you can help me out here. So let's talk about, first of all, the Federal Records Act and Jim Comey writing a report in an FBI vehicle, surrounded by FBI, on an FBI laptop, after a meeting with the president. Isn't that a federal record?
Yeah, I think I lost some of your feed there, but you asked me if that's a violation of the Federal Records Act. But I will tell you it's also a violation of 18 U.S.C. 641, and this idea that he conveyed a government record. Now look what he did. I mean, this is the FBI director gave the FBI director gave this information to a third party to leak. So I think that James Comey has serious legal exposure. In fact, the special counsel should be looking into his activity to determine whether it's a violation of law. My opinion it is that clearly the way he conducted himself with the distribution of that memo, which, as you said, was on government material, government property, basically a 302 report, I think it raises serious legal issues. Yep.
All right. So what we've got now is this information, conversations or documentation of alleged conversations with the President of the United States. Is that classified, or is that something that can just willy-nilly be passed out when you leave?
I mean, first of all, if you had a conversation with the President of the United States and you're the FBI director, it's immediately covered by executive privilege at a minimum. And the nature of what was discussed, I mean, look what was being supposedly discussed, by the way, that we only have Jim Comey's side of this. And you're talking about Russian investigations according to Jim Comey. I would think that would be classified information. Now, James Comey keeps this in his drawer and leaks it. Leaks it to a friend of his because he was afraid for his own personal reasons. And by the way, is this the guy you want? Is this the guy you want out there? Going after groups like ISIS and counterintelligence, he wasn't strong enough. I felt intimidated by Loretta Lynch. I mean, the reality is the legal exposure here, I think, is serious for Jim Comey.
Well,
really
I think it's serious, and I also think the reputation damage is huge. And, you know, the only problem, Jay, it seems to me, is he's like this with Bob Mueller. Bob Mueller, as special counsel, is in a position to have to assess who he's going to believe. If it's his word against his word, the president against Jim Comey. You and I both know that Mueller goes back to the 2004 days when, you know, Comey thought he was going to save the nation at the hospital bed of John Ashcroft. Who do you think Mueller's going to agree with?
Well, I think Mueller's going to have to, I think the special counsel is going to have to be very careful because you now had an admission by the former FBI director of the leak of the information. And he said he cleared this testimony, by the way, with the special counsel, which raises another legal issue. Why is a witness clearing his, quote, testimony with the special counsel who should include in the orbit of his investigation the FBI director who leaked information? He became the leaker in chief here. I mean, there's no question about it. But the three takeaways here are there is no case against the President of the United States. And James Comey acknowledged that multiple times.
But
there has never been an investigation of the president.
He's never been under investigation.
Self-serving documentation for his own reputation, which he collapsed last week.
All right,
It was a collapse of James Comey.
Absolutely. But the thing that I find so stunning, why would he out and out admit that he leaked that information to a friend, specifically to leak to the New York Times, specifically to get a special counsel? Was he going to be outed? Why would you do that?
Well, look, he said, and you're exactly correct, and I thought the lead counsel in this case, Mark Hasowitz, said it right in a statement. I mean, look at the nature of the events that took place here. And what ends up happening? And he did this, he said, to get a special, and by the way, a special counsel. And by the way, what happens the next day after he leaks it? Special counsel. So you tell me what's going on here. Mm-hmm. You've been a prosecutor, you've been a judge. Mm-hmm. I've been a government lawyer, mm-hmm. I've been in private practice. I will tell you, you just look at this evidence, you know that what's going on here is inside the Beltway situation, and I'll tell you something, the special counsel has to, if he's going to do his job, he better be looking at his friend as well.
Well, you know, and we all hope for that, but I don't know if history is any indication. I very much worry about these so-called objective investigations, like if you remember with Benghazi, you know, Hillary and the whole State Department, and they never even spoke to Hillary because they were pals of Hillary. Mueller now pal of Comey. Don't like it. Jay, go ahead.
All right, now I was going to say very quickly, there's a great legal team in place here for the president. These are serious issues that James Comey has put himself in the middle of. Mm-hmm. He's the one that has hoisted this constitutional issue on himself. I'm convinced with Mark Hasowitz and the legal team here that at the end of the day, it's going to be exactly what we saw at that hearing.
All right, and
no
maybe
case closed.
And maybe hoisted on his own petard. Jay Sekulow.
Yeah, could be.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Judge.
All right, and up next, my one-on-one interview with Donald Trump Jr., his exclusive reaction to the Comey testimony, and what he has to say about his father's tweeting. Plus, my all-star political panel is on deck and ready to battle it out. Back in a moment.
It's just a burst pipe. I can fix it.
All good? Oh yeah, we're good.
We're good. Termites never stop trying to get in. We never stop working to keep them out. Terminix, defenders of home.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Marianne Rafferty. 3 U.S. soldiers are dead after an attack by an Afghan soldier. A senior U.S. official telling Fox News that 3 Army Rangers died from an insider attack. Another U.S. soldier was wounded. The Taliban is claiming responsibility, and the group says in a statement that a Taliban loyalist joined the Afghan army to target U.S. and other NATO soldiers. President Trump has been briefed on the incident. And President Trump heading to Miami next week for a major address. He's expected to roll back President Obama's efforts to normalize relations with Cuba. The president reportedly wants to push Cuban President Raul Castro to allow more political freedom. Sources also confirmed to Fox News that the president is considering limiting American companies from dealing with businesses owned by the Cuban military.
Welcome back to Justice. Earlier, I sat down with President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., to talk about his reaction to the Comey testimony, how he feels about the left's endless attacks on his family, and his dad's tactics on fighting the war on terror. Take a look. Donald, thanks so much for being with us. You know, it's been a very interesting couple of days, and I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
You've abided by that pledge that you took, where after the inauguration, you're going to focus on the business, you weren't going to get involved in Washington, and now it seems things have changed. Why?
Well, I don't think things have changed. I always said I was never getting involved with the administration.
Right.
But I'm a politically minded guy. I always have been. I was way before we ever got into politics or my father got into politics. But, you know, when I see what's going on right now, when I see what went on for 10 months with the Russia nonsense and the smear, and then we see what happens on Thursday, it's like, give me a break. I mean, they're literally spent 10 months chasing a rabbit down a hole with essentially the sole purpose to try to take down my father. We were vindicated. I mean, totally.
Why do you say you were vindicated?
Look, listen, I think it's clear that, you know, everything that went on, the Comey testimony was basically Never asked me to stop a Russia investigation. When I hear the Flynn comments, you and I both know my father a long time.
Well,
when he tells you to do something,
yes,
guess what? There's no ambiguity in it. There's no, hey, I'm hoping. You and I are friends. Hey, I hope this happens, but you got to do your job. That's what he told Comey. And for this guy, as a politician, to then go back and write a memo, oh, I felt threatened. He felt so threatened. But he didn't do anything.
especially when we found out that there is no collusion. But weren't
and by the way, hit it best. Yeah. Honestly, he said, of all the things that were leaked, the only thing that wasn't leaked was that Trump was never under investigation because there's nothing there.
Right.
How come that's not leaked?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the leak.
It's pretty scary when you think about it. The only thing that's out there basically totally vindicating the last few months, and now what we know about how he handled the Loretta Lynch thing, explains perfectly why he should totally be fired.
Did he lie under oath when he said...
Well, the dates seem very confusing to me. Based on what I saw in the New York Times and based on his claim that it was because of a tweet from my father the day after...
Mm-hmm. That can't be the reason.
It doesn't seem right to me.
A tweet when the New York Times had it.
Listen, he's a very sophisticated political player, and he's playing the game. But I think he even got caught up in his own nonsense in this one.
And what about the idea of leaking? With all the leaks coming from within the administration, that Jim Comey, someone who's in charge of, law enforcement in the United States, would consider leaking to a New York Times and not doing it himself. Does that suggest to you that maybe he was responsible for some of the leaks?
Well, I think almost without question. I mean, he said he's a leaker. If he did it this time, how many other times did they do it? I wish there was a follow-up for that. Maybe some of the senators up there aren't as quick-witted as they should be. But it's amazing that there wasn't. But, I mean, if the head of the FBI is saying, then he's saying, well, if I was a stronger individual, I may... Yeah. Give me a break. Yeah. You're the head of the FBI.
Yeah,
you're not some baby pretending... I think that happened.
And calling your dad a liar.
Listen, I think he's proven himself to be a liar in all of this. I think he's proven himself to be a dishonest man of bad character.
The mainstream media and the left and the Democrats are doing everything in their power for the last, 5 months since he's been in office, just calling him words like saying he's a blank holster, Stephen Colbert. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is so contrary.
They've taken it so far. And, listen, I see it and I've taken it personally. Perhaps that's why I've been more vocal about it lately, because, the lines have been crossed so much.
They went after Ivanka's business. They went after Eric's charity, $16 million for pediatric cancer. I've been there many times. They want Jared and their sites. And then the Baron with the bloody head. I mean, isn't this beyond anything you guys ever expected would happen?
Unfortunately, yes. And I think we went in with eyes pretty open. I don't think we're naive by any stretch of the imagination. I think we knew it was going to be bad, but when I look at how bad it is, when I look at the conversations I have to, think about having with my kids every night, hopefully they don't see it, but as they get older, they're more likely to see it. It's pretty sad because, in the end, of all the people that ran, he's the only one that didn't need this job. My father didn't need this. He wanted to do this. He's 70 years old. He could do whatever he wanted for the rest of his life. But he's in there dealing with this, fighting for the people who elected him.
Terror. Your father's approach to terror is quite different from a lot of the leaders in Europe. Do you think that your father is the one who is going to have the ability to put an end to all of this?
Well, listen, let's make it more simple. He actually has an approach, which is, let's take these guys out. The others, they have no approach. Their approach is to sit back and do nothing. Mm-hmm. Their approach is to sit back and pretend there's not a problem. Keep calm and carry on. What does that mean? There are people blowing themselves up. There are people driving trucks through groups of people, killing them. This is not something that's just going to magically go away with hugs and kisses. This is not, it's mind-boggling.
Okay.
You have the people that talk about, the only way to defeat terror is by not allowing yourself to be terrorized. Tell that to the victims.
All right, let me move to another issue, tweeting.
Yes.
You have defended your father's tweeting, and there are those who say that his tweeting, steps on his own message.
Well, listen, I think, honestly, until the media chooses to cover him honestly, in an unbiased, their spin fashion, he's going to play monkey in the middle. He's just going to go right over the top, right to the people. And guess what? It works. And that's why they're so furious, because they are becoming more and more irrelevant every day. You can't get honesty. There's virtually no trust in the mainstream media these days. And so people are going to alternative sources. And if you go right to the source, as you would in anything else, you're going to get what he's actually thinking.
You have your father's energy. You have his smarts. You clearly can get very animated. You going to run for office?
No plans anytime soon.
No plans, but could you see yourself someday saying this is...
Hide from it, much like we're talking about with the politicians as it relates to terror these days. You know what? Maybe you got to do it, but no time soon.
Donald Trump Jr., thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Still ahead, street justice. But first, a lot of breaking news to cover tonight with my political panel. They're up next. Stay right there.
Good to see you again, Matt. Phil, how you guys doing?
My job starts in Portland in a month.
Can we find a buyer that fast?
15.
Welcome back to Justice, and time for the panel on this extremely busy night of news, so let's get right to it. Joining me now, GOPAC Chairman David Avella and Democratic strategist, also Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. All right, guys. Yeah. I'm not going to ask...
Page. Those are questions that weren't addressed. Tune in. We've got a long way to go.
Okay. So, what do you say to that?
Well, in typical Jim Comey fashion, he raised more questions about himself and about his motives. With all of that said, the sideshow is over, folks.
All right.
It's time to get working on the agenda for the American people. And let me say, as we start looking forward to the elections, Bernie Sanders said it well tonight. The current model and the current strategy of the Democratic Party is an absolute failure.
All right, let's talk about the fact that what you've got is... Now we know the president is not under investigation, something Jim Comey
wasn't under investigation.
Well, what? After the guy gets fired, a disgruntled employee says, "I'm gonna maneuver with my my Washington ways and get my best friend Bob Mueller to be special counsel." I'll link it to the
my point.
Oh, come on! You know that's disingenuous.
No,
the guy was the head of the FBI. What? The day after he got fired, he said, "Now I'm PO'd."
Well, he said he wanted to get a special prosecutor hired, and he succeeded.
Yeah. Why didn't he? Go ahead.
Let's go back here for a few months. This investigation started because somehow the Russians cost Hillary Clinton the election. We don't even talk about that anymore. The Democrats' total talking points now are not what this original investigation started as. Is that how did Hillary Clinton lose the election because the Russians somehow hacked into this? We don't even talk about that anymore.
But here's the thing. Why is it that the president was not under investigation? Comey wouldn't say it. Why is it that Comey says what Loretta Lynch tells him to say, which he knows is wrong? Why is it that Jim Comey then makes the decision that he's going to say he doesn't really know what misprision of a felony is, or whether or not he should report what he thinks is a crime? But when he leaves, he's disgruntled. It's crime now.
Look, there are real questions, as you pointed out, about Comey, what he did, what he said, what he thought. There are real questions about not what the impact on the election was, but was there collusion? We don't. The impact on the president's agenda will be. And if there is a sideshow, as David was saying before, and this continues, as I believe it will be, the net losers will be the Republicans. The Democrats don't have an agenda. The only agenda is resist. This helps resist.
What is their agenda?
Republicans just this week in the House repealed Dodd-Frank. The president talked about infrastructure. Kelly, and this election is about that message. We have a big day in 2018.
Okay, but see, here's the problem. If the Democrats are so focused on Russia, you know, because something happened, we now know there was no collusion with Donald Trump.
No, we don't know that.
Well, wait a minute. For 10 months. No, this isn't about Flynn.
Yes, it sure is.
What do you say to the fact that the president himself said, "I'll testify"?
I hope he does.
Jared Kushner
as a Democrat, I hope he does it. And as a lawyer, I hope he doesn't do it.
Attorney General now. Now, Jim Comey did a gut punch to Jeff Sessions and said, "Wait a minute." But that's such a hogwash. You know why?
He's in perilous shape.
No.
The president
has
avowed that he's got his full confidence.
Why is Jeff Sessions willing to testify on Tuesday under oath?
Because he's got real issues to clear up about his meetings with the Russians, whether there was a third meeting, and I think he's trying to clear his name when he's really under a real cloud.
Why are these guys willing to testify if they're so bad?
They have no.
Doesn't it really aggravate you that we wasted all this time? We allowed the New York Times story to proliferate for months and months that there was conversations between Russian intelligence and the team when Comey knew it was a lie and he did nothing. That paradigm of honesty.
It sure can be frustrating, but not nearly as frustrating as seeing Americans suffer. And that's why the president and that's why the Republican Congress need to get back to focusing on that and not worry about this sideshow.
This is politics. We have a long way to go, Jeanine, and a lot more evidence to hear.
And I'm waiting for the Martians to sit on the Supreme Court.
And Jeanine, I'll be there with you, waiting for the Martians. They may show up.
You never know.
You
David
never
and
know.
Bella, Doug Schoen, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Coming up, you've been waiting for it all night, and finally it's time. Street Justice is next. We'll be back in a moment.
Now in the Wells Fargo mobile app, you can request a one-time access code to use the ATM.
And then we should get someone else in.
She's blamed everybody.